I was looking for my parents' insurance documents in their home office when I found the will. They had asked me to find the papers. They trusted me with their private files. And there, in a manila folder labeled estate planning, I saw the words that would change everything. All assets, properties, and holdings to our son, Brandon Michael Thompson. My brother. Everything to him. Nothing to me. I had been paying their mortgage for 18 months, their property taxes twice, Mom's dental work, Dad's car repairs. Their homeowners, insurance. $23,000 from my own savings. And according to this document, I would get absolutely nothing. My hands were shaking as I sat in their leather office chair, reading through every page of that will. It was dated 6 months ago. 6 months. That meant they had updated this after I started helping them financially, after I had already sent them thousands of dollars. The document was thorough. Painfully thorough. The house, appraised at $450,000. Dad's retirement accounts totaling $120,000. Mom's life insurance policy worth $200,000. The vacation cabin up in Vermont that had been in the family for 30 years. All of it, every single asset, left to Brandon. And then there was one line about me. Just one. We trust our daughter understands our decision. Understands? I sat there trying to process what understanding even meant in this context. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, scrolling back through 18 months of transactions. $1,200. Every single month, like clockwork. Plus the emergency payments. The $1,500 when their furnace died last January. The $2,000 for Mom's root canal in March. The $800 for Dad's car transmission in July. Another $1,200 for their property tax shortfall in September. I did the math 3 times because I couldn't believe it. $25,400. That was what I had given them. My savings account had gone from $42,000 to $16,600. I had been building that money for years, living in a small apartment, driving a 10-year-old car, packing my lunch for work every day. I had been saving to buy a house with Derek, my fiancé. We had been planning to get married next spring, but I kept postponing because I needed to help my parents first. And this whole time, they were writing me out of their will. I heard the front door open downstairs. My parents were back from their grocery shopping. I carefully put the will back in the folder exactly as I had found it, grabbed the insurance documents they had asked for, and went downstairs. Mom was putting away groceries. Dad was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. They looked so normal. So ordinary. Like parents who loved their daughter. I handed Mom the insurance papers. She thanked me with a warm smile. I watched her face, looking for something. Some sign of guilt or discomfort. Nothing. She just hummed a little tune as she put milk in the refrigerator. I went home to my apartment. Derek was there, making dinner. He took one look at my face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. I told him everything. About the will. About the numbers. About that one cold line suggesting I should understand. Derek was furious in a way I had never seen him before. He paced our small living room, his face red. "This is financial abuse," he kept saying. "This is them using you. You have to stop. You have to stop right now." But I felt paralyzed. They were my parents. This was family. You take care of family. That was what I had always been taught. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about every sacrifice I had made. The house Derek and I could have bought by now. The wedding we kept delaying. The vacation we had canceled last year because I needed to send money for their roof repair. The next morning, I decided I needed to hear it from them directly. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the will was old and they had forgotten to update it. Maybe there was something I was missing. I called them at 9 in the morning. Dad answered. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Dad, I need to ask you something about your estate planning." There was a long pause. Then his voice changed, became guarded. "That's private family business, Glenda. I know, but I accidentally saw some papers yesterday. I was looking for the insurance documents like you asked, and I saw your will. I just want to understand." Another pause. Then I heard him call for Mom. "Linda, pick up the other phone." A click as Mom got on the extension in their bedroom. I took a breath. "Why is everything going to Brandon? I've been helping you for over a year now. I've given you more than $25,000. Mom's voice was tight. Where we choose to leave our assets is our decision, Glenda. It's not something you should have been looking at. But I need to understand. Why, Brandon? Why nothing for me? Dad cleared his throat. Your brother needs it more. He's got a family to think about. 3 kids. Responsibilities. I make $58,000 a year as a school counselor. Brandon makes $95,000 as a sales manager. He doesn't need it more than me. Money isn't everything, honey. Mom's voice had that condescending tone she used when she thought I was being childish. Then why does Brandon get all of it? Family takes care of family, Dad said. You help because you love us. Not because you expect something in return. The words hit me like a slap. So the $25,000 I gave you, that was just expected? That was my obligation? That was your choice, Dad said. We didn't force you to do anything. Did you update the will after I started helping you? I asked. Silence. Answer me. Did you make this decision after I had already started paying your bills? Mom finally spoke. We made the decision we felt was right. Brandon has more needs. That's all there is to it. I felt something inside me go cold and hard. Okay, I understand now. Good, Dad said. Now, let's not talk about this again. It's uncomfortable. I agreed. I hung up, and I went straight to my bank's website and canceled the automatic transfer that sent them $1,200 every month. Derek came home from work that evening and found me on the couch, staring at nothing. I did it, I told him. I stopped the payments. He sat next to me and held my hand. Good, that's good. But I didn't feel good. I felt like I had failed some fundamental test of daughterhood. Even though rationally I knew they were using me. Emotionally, I felt guilty. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. I kept thinking about that line in the will. We trust our daughter understands our decision. Like my understanding was the price of admission, like my acceptance of being erased was just expected. The next morning, I woke up to an email notification. I checked my phone. Still half asleep. The email was from Brandon, my brother. I hadn't heard from him in almost 2 months. The subject line was, "Thanks, sis." I opened it with a sense of dread. Hey, sis. Thanks for taking care of the parents. I know they can be a handful. By the way, I know they left me everything in the will, but don't worry about it. When the time comes, I'll make sure you get something. Maybe 10 or 20,000, depending on what's left after taxes and expenses. That's fair, right? Anyway, appreciate you keeping them afloat. Talk soon. I read it 3 times. He knew. Brandon had known about the will all along. He had known I was paying their bills while he was set to inherit everything, and he thought 10 or 20,000 was fair compensation. Fair. I forwarded the email to Derek without comment. His response came immediately. 1 word. Bastard. That was when I realized this wasn't just my parents' decision. Brandon had been part of this. Maybe he had even encouraged it. He was benefiting from my financial sacrifice while offering me scraps from what should have been a shared inheritance. I got up, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table. The morning sun came through the window. Everything looked normal. But nothing would ever be normal again. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Deeply, coldly angry. And I was done. 4 weeks passed. I heard nothing from my parents. Not a phone call, not a text, not even an email. The silence was its own kind of message. They had taken my financial support as a given, as something that would simply continue, regardless of how they treated me. And when it stopped, they didn't even reach out to ask why or if I was okay. They just waited. I used that month to focus on myself for the first time in years. Derek and I went to look at houses. We found a cute little bungalow with a yard in a neighborhood we loved. It needed work, but it was ours. We put down a deposit, $3,000 from my slowly rebuilding savings. I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Sarah Grant, and she specialized in family dynamics. In our second session, she asked me a question that made me cry. When did you first learn that your worth was measured by your usefulness? I couldn't answer because I didn't know. Maybe I had always known. Maybe that was just what being a daughter meant in my family. My friends were incredible during this time. Amanda, my best friend since college, took me out for dinner and let me vent for 2 straight hours. She didn't judge. She didn't tell me to forgive them. She just listened, and then said, "You deserve so much better than this." Work became my refuge. I'm a high school counselor, and helping kids navigate their problems gave me purpose when my own life felt chaotic. A junior named Sophie came to me worried about college applications. We spent an hour going through her options. When she left my office smiling, I felt useful in a way that had nothing to do with money. But at night, lying in bed next to Derek, I would think about my parents. I would imagine them struggling with bills, confused about why I had stopped helping. Part of me wanted them to suffer. Part of me felt guilty for wanting that. On day 32, my phone buzzed during my lunch break. A text from Mom. "The mortgage is due." 3 words. No greeting. No "how are you?" No "we miss you." Just a statement of fact, presented as if it were my problem to solve. I stared at the phone for a long time. My sandwich sat uneaten on my desk. I could hear students laughing in the hallway outside my office. Everything continued as normal while my family fell apart. Derek had told me to ignore any contact from them. "Just don't respond," he had said. "They don't deserve your energy," but I couldn't ignore it. I needed them to know that I knew. I needed them to understand that their manipulation had been seen and rejected. I typed 3 words back, "Ask the air." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came within 2 minutes. What is that supposed to mean? I typed carefully. Brandon gets everything. Brandon can pay for everything. My phone rang immediately. Mom calling. I didn't answer. She called again. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text. "How dare you? We raised you better than this." Something in me snapped. I typed back quickly, my thumbs moving fast across the screen. "You left me nothing and expected everything." "I'm done." I blocked her number. For about 10 seconds, I felt powerful. Then the guilt crashed in like a wave. I had just cut off my mother. What kind of person does that? But I didn't unblock the number. 2 hours later, during my last session of the day with a student, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I ignored it. It called again. And again. When my student left, I checked my voicemail. It was Dad, calling from his work cell phone. The message was cold and angry. "Your mother is in tears. Actual tears, Glenda. Because of you. Because her daughter has decided to abandon her in her time of need. Call me back immediately." I deleted the voicemail. But he called again. This time not leaving a message. Just calling over and over. Finally I answered. Dad's voice was hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I took a breath. "What's wrong with me? You left me nothing. You took $25,000 from me and left me nothing. And you expect me to keep paying? We gave you life. We gave you 18 years of food and shelter, a roof over your head, clothes, education. That's worth a hell of a lot more than $25,000. The words were like acid. He was reducing my entire childhood to a financial transaction, as if love and care were bills to be paid. "So being your daughter means I owe you forever?" I asked. "It means you honor your parents. It means you don't abandon them when they need you." "What about when I needed you?" I asked. "When I needed to buy a house? When I needed to get married? When I needed to build my own life? Did you think about that when you were writing me out of your will? Brandon needs that inheritance. He has kids, responsibilities. What do you have? You're just you, just me." Those 2 words hit harder than anything else he could have said. My existence was insufficient. My life was less valuable because I hadn't produced grandchildren. I was just me, and that wasn't enough to deserve their consideration. "I'm done with this conversation," I said quietly. "You're making a huge mistake," he said. "This family won't forget this." "Good," I said. And I hung up. I sat in my office as the sun set outside my window, watching the sky turn orange and then purple and then dark. My phone stayed silent. No more calls. No more texts. They had said what they needed to say. I was the villain now. The ungrateful daughter. The one who abandoned her parents. And sitting there in the dark, I realized something. They would never see themselves as wrong. They would never apologize. They would never suddenly wake up and realize they had used me. This was who they were, and I had to accept that and move forward. But moving forward was harder than I thought. The calls started 3 days later. Not from my parents, but from everyone else. My phone rang at 7 in the morning on Saturday. I was still in bed, Derek snoring softly beside me. I grabbed my phone and saw Aunt Carol's name. Aunt Carol was Mom's younger sister. She lived 2 hours away, and I saw her maybe twice a year at family gatherings. We weren't particularly close, but we had always been friendly. I answered, expecting maybe she had heard about the situation and wanted to offer support. "Glenda," she said, her voice tight with disapproval. "What is going on with you?" I sat up, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean? Your mother called me last night absolutely distraught. She says you've abandoned them, that you've stopped helping with their bills and you won't even talk to them. How can you do this to your own parents?" "Did she tell you why?" I asked. "She said you're upset about their will." "Glenda, honey, that's their business. They can leave their money to whoever they want. That doesn't mean you get to stop being their daughter." I took a breath. "They've taken over $25,000 from me in the last year and a half. I've been paying their mortgage, their bills, their emergency expenses, and they wrote me completely out of their will. Everything goes to Brandon. They did that while I was actively supporting them. So what?" Aunt Carol's voice was sharp. "That's their choice. You don't help your parents because you expect an inheritance. You help them because they're your parents. They raised you. They took care of you. And now when they need you, you're punishing them for a legal document?" "They used me," I said. "No. They trusted you to be a good daughter. And you're proving them wrong." The conversation went on for another 10 minutes, but nothing I said mattered. Aunt Carol had decided I was selfish and cruel, and no amount of explanation would change her mind. After I hung up, Derek pulled me back into bed. "Ignore her," he said. "She doesn't understand." But Aunt Carol was just the beginning. Over the next week, I got calls from my cousin Jessica, from my Uncle Paul, from my parents' neighbors, from people I barely knew. Each one had the same message, presented in slightly different words. I was abandoning my elderly parents. I was being selfish. I was cruel. I was breaking my mother's heart. No one wanted to hear about the will. No one wanted to hear about the money. When I tried to explain, they dismissed it. "That's not the point," they would say. "Family is family." I realized my parents had told everyone their version of the story. The version where they were innocent victims and I was the ungrateful daughter. They had left out every detail that would make them look bad, and people believed them. Because parents don't usually exploit their children so blatantly. Because the narrative of the dutiful parent and the rebellious child is easy to accept. Then Brandon posted on Facebook. I saw it because Amanda sent me a screenshot. She knew I had blocked Brandon months ago after he had made some condescending comment about my career choice. The post was simple and devastating. "So disappointed in my sister right now. When family needs you most, you show your true colors. I'm praying she finds compassion and remembers what family means. Mom and Dad don't deserve this." The comments section exploded. Over 60 comments in the first hour. Family, friends, distant relatives, people from our hometown, all weighing in with their opinions about what a terrible person I was. What happened to family values? Your poor parents raised you better than this. Some people only care about money. So sad. I couldn't stop reading them even though each one felt like a knife. Amanda kept texting me. "Stop looking. Just stop. Block all of them." But a few people did defend me. My friend from college, Marcus, commented, "There's always two sides to a story. Maybe ask Glenda before judging." My coworker Jenny, who I had confided in, wrote, "Family relationships are complicated. Support doesn't mean endless sacrifice." But their comments were drowned out by the chorus of judgment. The worst part was that my own mother shared Brandon's post. She added her own comment. "Thank you for understanding, son. At least one of my children remembers what love means." I felt sick, actually physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Derek found me there 20 minutes later, sitting on the cold tile floor. We're getting you off social media, he said. All of it. Right now. He helped me delete my Facebook app. Then Instagram. Then Twitter. Every platform where people could reach me with their poison. But the damage was done. The court of public opinion had decided I was guilty, and there was no defense allowed. On Monday, I went to work hoping for normalcy. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. Margaret, one of the other counselors, was in the break room when I arrived. Margaret went to the same church as my parents. I had always found her kind of cold, but we had maintained professional courtesy. That morning, she looked at me like I was something dirty. Morning, I said, pouring coffee. She didn't respond, just gathered her things and walked out. Later that morning, I was called to the principal's office. My stomach dropped. Principal Hayes was usually friendly and supportive, but when I walked in, his face was serious. Glenda, sit down, please. I sat, my heart pounding. I received a call this weekend. From your mother. Oh God, she's concerned about you. She says you've cut off contact with your family, and she's worried about your mental state. She asked if we had noticed any changes in your behavior. My face went hot. What did you tell her? I told her that you're an excellent counselor, and we haven't noticed anything concerning. But, Glenda, I have to ask, is everything okay at home? The question was kind, but it was also invasive. My mother had reached into my workplace, had tried to make my employer question my stability. There's a family disagreement, I said carefully. It's personal. It doesn't affect my work. She seemed to think it might. She's wrong. Principal Hayes studied me for a moment. If you need any time off, or if you need support, let me know. But I need to know that you're okay to be here with the students. I'm fine, I said. Better than fine. This job is the one place where I feel like myself. He nodded. Okay. But my door is open if that changes. I left his office feeling violated. My parents weren't content to just attack me personally. They were going after my reputation, my professional life, the one space I had that was mine. That afternoon, Margaret made a pointed comment in the staff meeting. Family is so important, don't you think? We should all remember to honor our parents while we still have them. She looked directly at me when she said it. I didn't respond. But inside, I was screaming. That night, Brandon called me. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Glenda, he said, his voice reasonable and calm. I think we need to talk. I don't have anything to say to you. Just hear me out. I hate what's happening to this family. I really do. And I want to help fix it. I was immediately suspicious. Brandon never wanted to help anyone but himself. I'm listening, I said. Look. I talked to Mom and Dad. They're willing to change the will. They'll split everything 50-50. You and me. Equal. For a second, my heart actually lifted. Maybe he had developed a conscience. Maybe he actually cared. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. Well, one small thing. You'd need to apologize to them for the way you've handled this. And you'd need to resume the monthly payments. They're struggling without your help. The hope died instantly. Of course, it was never about making things right. It was about getting my money back. And one more thing, Brandon continued. You'd need to sign a document saying you won't contest the will or cause any problems down the line. Just a formality. My lawyer can draw it up. Your lawyer? Well, yeah. We need to protect everyone's interests. What about the $1,800 they were short this month because I stopped paying? I asked. And the late fees? Brandon cleared his throat. Yeah, you'd need to cover that too. Call it $2,000 total. Just to get things back to even. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to apologize for being used, resume giving them $1,200 a month, sign away any rights I might have, and pay them $2,000 for the privilege. When you put it that way, it sounds bad, but think of it as an investment. You get half of everything eventually. That's way more than $2,000. And what if they live another 20 years? What if I end up giving them another $250,000 and get half of an estate that's been depleted by their living expenses? You're overthinking this. No, Brandon. I'm thinking clearly for the first time. The answer is no. His voice changed, went cold. Then you're on your own. And trust me, little sister, this family will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. We'll make your life miserable. You already are, I said. And I hung up. I told Derek about the call. He was pacing again. Furious. They're never going to stop. They're going to keep coming at you until you break. Then I won't break, I said. But sitting there that night, I wondered how long I could hold out. They had the whole family on their side. They had social capital. They had my workplace whispering about me. They had the moral high ground in the eyes of everyone who mattered. All I had was the truth. And in my family, the truth had never been worth much. 3 weeks crawled by. The attacks continued, but I stopped engaging. I blocked numbers. I stayed off social media. I focused on work and on my relationship with Derek. We set a wedding date for next June. Small ceremony, close friends only. No family except Derek's parents, who were kind and supportive. I started to think maybe I could just outlast this. Maybe eventually they would give up and leave me alone. Then the certified letter arrived. I got home from work on a Thursday afternoon and found the notice from the post office. I needed to sign for a delivery. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever comes by certified mail. The next morning, I went to the post office before work. The clerk handed me a thick manila envelope. The return address was a law firm. Hastings and Crane, attorneys at law. I sat in my car in the parking lot and opened it with shaking hands. It was a legal demand letter. 4 pages long. On behalf of their clients, Frank and Linda Thompson, demanding payment of $47,000 for loans and financial assistance provided over the years. I read through the itemized list, each entry feeling like a punch to the gut. College textbooks and supplies, $3,000. My first car down payment, $5,000. Emergency dental work at age 26, $2,000. Security deposit for my first apartment, $1,800. Various smaller loans over the years, another $4,000. And then the big one. Financial assistance provided from January of last year through September of this year, $25,400. Listed as loans, not gifts. Total amount due, $47,200. Plus, interest calculated at 6% annually from the date of each loan. They had 30 days to file a lawsuit if I didn't pay. I couldn't breathe. I sat there in my car, reading the letter over and over, trying to make it make sense. They were suing me. My parents were actually suing me for helping them, for being a good daughter. For all the things parents are supposed to do willingly for their children, they were now claiming were loans that needed to be repaid. I called in sick to work. I couldn't face my students like this. I drove home in a daze and showed Derek the letter. He read it twice, his face getting redder with each line. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. What do I do? We get you a lawyer. Right now. Today. Derek found someone through a friend of a friend. Harold Stevens, a family law attorney, who had been practicing for 30 years. His consultation fee was $300. Money I didn't really have, but money I absolutely needed to spend. We met with him that afternoon in his downtown office. Harold was in his 60s, gray hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He read through the demand letter carefully while I sat there trying not to cry. Finally, he looked up. This is aggressive. And honestly, quite vindictive. But let's talk about what they can actually prove. He explained that most of their claims were beyond the statute of limitations. The textbooks, the car, the dental work, all of that happened too long ago to be legally collectible. But the recent payments, he said, that's trickier. Do you have anything in writing that indicates these were gifts and not loans? I thought back through 18 months of bank transfers. Just notes like for mom and dad or mortgage help or bills. Nothing that explicitly said gift. Do you have text messages or emails where they thanked you in a way that would indicate these were gifts? Harold asked. Things like thank you for your generous help or we're so grateful for your support. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. I found a few texts from Mom. Thanks for the money. Got the payment, thanks. One that said, you're a lifesaver. Nothing that explicitly called it a gift. This could be a problem, Harold said. Without clear evidence that you intended these as gifts, They could argue they were loans. It's your word against theirs, but they never asked me to sign a loan agreement. They never said they'd pay me back. True. But they could claim there was a verbal agreement. Family members often loan each other money informally. So what happens if they sue? We fight it. We argue that these were gifts based on the context of your relationship and the circumstances. We point out that they never once mentioned repayment until after you stopped giving them money. We make the case that this lawsuit is retaliatory. Will I win? Harold paused. Honestly? It could go either way. A judge might see this for what it is, which is manipulation. Or a judge might say that you should have gotten things in writing. Family court can be unpredictable. How much would it cost to defend? He quoted me a number that made my head spin. $15,000 to $20,000, depending on how long it dragged out and whether it went to trial. I couldn't afford that. Even if I won, I'd be broke. There's another option, Harold said. We could try to settle. Negotiate a lower amount, just to make this go away. How much lower? Hard to say. Maybe they'd take $35,000. Maybe less if we can show their case is weak. I felt trapped. Pay them. Fight them. Either way, I lost. I need to think about this, I said. You have time. But not much. They're clearly serious about this. Derek and I left Harold's office and sat in the car for a long time without speaking. Finally, Derek said, "We might have to pull our house deposit." "No," I said immediately. "No. We're not letting them take that from us too. But if you have legal bills and they win, they're not going to win. I won't let them." But I didn't know how to stop them. I felt like I was drowning. Over the next week, the stress manifested physically. I couldn't sleep. I lost 7 pounds. I started having panic attacks at random times. Once during a session with a student, I had to excuse myself and go to the bathroom to breathe through it. Then came the second letter. From the same law firm. This one was shorter. Their clients were willing to settle for $35,000. If I paid within 2 weeks, they would drop all claims. If not, they would file the lawsuit. 2 weeks. $35,000. Money I absolutely did not have. I called Harold in a panic. "This is a pressure tactic," he said. "They want you scared. They want you to panic. And pay. Well, it's working. Listen to me, Glenda. Before you make any decision, I think we should look into something. Do you have any friends who could do some research on your parents' financial situation?" Amanda immediately volunteered when I told her what was happening. She had a connection to a private investigator through her work in insurance. His name was Jake Morrison, and he specialized in financial investigations. It cost $800 that Amanda insisted on loaning me. "I'll pay you back," I promised. "Just get these people out of your life," she said. Jake started digging. It took him 1 week. When he called me, his voice was careful. "You might want to sit down for this." I was already sitting in my apartment, Derek next to me. "Tell me, your parents aren't struggling financially," Jake said. "Not even close." He sent me his report by email while we stayed on the phone. I opened it and started reading, my hands shaking. "Your dad's retirement account. Not $120,000 like the will says. It's $190,000. They've been adding to it, not drawing from it." I kept reading. "The Vermont cabin, valued at $200,000, owned free and clear. No mortgage on that property. Their combined income from Social Security and your dad's pension is $5,800 a month. Their mortgage is $1,800. That leaves them $4,000 a month for all other expenses. But they said they were struggling. They lied." Jake's voice was flat. "They don't need your money. They never did." "Then why?" "I don't know. But there's more. Your brother, Brandon. He's been receiving money from them too." "What?" "Bank records show transfers to Brandon totaling $65,000 over the past 3 years. Regular payments of $1,500 to $2,000 monthly. They were giving Brandon money while taking mine? Looks that way." My vision started to blur. This couldn't be real. "One more thing," Jake said. "I was able to obtain some text messages through a legal channel. Messages between your mother and Brandon. He sent them as screenshots." I opened the first one. "Mom, Glenda makes less, so every dollar from her means more. It shows she really loves us. Brandon. Smart. Keep her paying as long as you can." I read the exchange 3 times. Each time it hurt more. They were testing me. This whole thing had been a test of my love, measured in dollars. The less I had, the more valuable my sacrifice. And Brandon had been in on it from the beginning. There were more messages. Plans to use me. Discussions of how much they could reasonably extract before I stopped. Brandon joking about his inheritance while I struggled to make ends meet. Jake's voice brought me back. I'm sorry. I know this is hard to see. But you needed to know the truth. Thank you, I whispered. What are you going to do? I don't know. But as I sat there looking at those messages, at the proof of their manipulation, I felt something shift inside me. The guilt I had been carrying started to transform into something else. Rage. Pure, clean, righteous rage. They had lied to me, used me, coordinated against me, and now they were trying to sue me for the money they had tricked me into giving them. I called Harold Stevens. I'm ready to fight, I told him. And I have evidence. A lot of evidence. Good, he said. Then let's make them regret ever starting this. I spent 2 days organizing everything. Bank records showing my parents' actual financial status. The transfers to Brandon. The text messages proving this was all a coordinated manipulation. Jake's full report documenting their lies. Derek was worried. If you do this, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. They were never my family, I said. Family doesn't do this. Amanda came over with wine and moral support. You're doing the right thing. They need to face consequences. But I was terrified. What I was about to do would burn every bridge. It would make the social media attacks look mild. It would expose my parents to public judgment and humiliation. And yet, they had done all of that to me first. They had tried to destroy my reputation. They had weaponized my extended family against me. They had reached into my workplace. They had sued me. I owed them nothing, not even privacy. On Saturday morning, I sat down at my laptop and started writing. I wrote for 3 hours, editing and refining until every word was exactly right. The Facebook post was long, detailed, devastating. I explained everything. The will that left me nothing, the $25,000 I had given them, the discovery that they were financially stable and didn't need my help, the fact that they had been giving Brandon $65,000 while taking my money. I posted screenshots of the bank records with account numbers blacked out. I posted the text messages between Mom and Brandon. I posted sections of Jake's investigation report. I explained that they were now suing me for $47,000 for helping them, that they had tried to ruin my reputation when I stopped being their personal ATM, that everything they had said about me being a bad daughter was a lie to cover up their financial exploitation. I ended with this. I was never their daughter. I was their ATM, and when I stopped dispensing cash, they tried to destroy me. This is who Frank and Linda Thompson really are. I read it one more time. Derek read it over my shoulder. You're sure? He asked. I'm sure. I hit post. For the first 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the likes started. Then the comments. Then the shares. Within an hour, the post had 200 reactions. Within 2 hours, 150 comments. My friends were immediately supportive. Oh my God, Glenda, I'm so sorry. This is horrible. Some family members were shocked and apologetic. I had no idea it was like this. I'm so sorry I judged you. Others were angry at me. You're airing family business publicly? Have you no shame? But most people were horrified at my parents. This is financial abuse, pure and simple. Brandon commented within the first hour. This is defamatory. You're lying about our parents. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, I replied publicly. Everything I posted is documented and true. If you'd like to sue me for defamation, go ahead. Discovery will be very interesting. He deleted his comment. The post kept spreading. People I hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out. Former classmates. By evening, it had been shared over 100 times. It reached my parents' social circles, their church community, their neighborhood, Dad's former workplace. The comments from people who knew them were revealing. Their neighbor, a woman named Patricia Patterson, commented, I always thought something was off about how they talked about their daughter. This explains everything. I'm so sorry, Glenda. Someone from Dad's old job wrote, Frank always had an entitled attitude about money. This doesn't surprise me. One of Mom's book club members. I'm leaving the book club over this. I can't associate with someone who would treat their child this way. The social consequences were real and immediate. Sunday morning, I got a message from Pastor Reynolds, the pastor at my parents' church. He asked if he could call me. I said yes. Glenda, he said when I answered, his voice kind but serious. I saw your post. I've known your parents for 15 years. I need to hear your side of this. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting for almost an hour. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What they've done goes against every principle we teach about family and integrity. I'm going to need to have a very serious conversation with them. I'm not trying to get them kicked out of their church," I said. "That's not your decision," he said gently. "It's mine, and actions have consequences." 3 days later, I heard through Aunt Carol that there had been an emergency meeting of the church elders about my parents. Several members had expressed concern about their character. The church was reviewing their membership. Mom's book club disbanded entirely. 3 of the 7 members quit specifically because of what my parents had done to me. Dad's weekly poker game with his retired co-worker friends quietly stopped inviting him. The social fallout was bigger than I had expected. My parents had built their reputation over decades, and I had torn it down with one post and documentation they couldn't deny. Then Brandon sent me a private message. "You just destroyed Mom and Dad's reputation. Happy now?" I replied. I told the truth. "That's all. They're old. They're embarrassed. Their friends are judging them. You did this for revenge." "No. I did this to defend myself. You all tried to make me the villain. I simply showed people who the real villains are." "Fine. You want to play hardball? I'll drop my lawsuit against you." I stopped typing. "Wait, your lawsuit? Who do you think is funding their lawyer?" Brandon wrote. "I'm paying for it. This whole thing was my idea." The air went out of my lungs. "You know why?" Brandon continued typing. "Because in that will, there's a clause. If you legally challenge them or cause them significant distress, you get written out permanently, not just from the inheritance, but from the family burial plot, family records, everything. You get erased. Ifad Cord. I've been trying to trigger that clause." Brandon's next message came through. "See, as long as there was even a small chance they might change their mind and give you something, I couldn't fully relax. But if you attack them publicly or legally, clause triggers. You're erased. I get everything, forever, with zero chance you'll ever get a piece of it. You've been orchestrating this whole thing," I typed. "Smart girl. But you just did something I didn't expect. You made them look bad publicly. Really bad. Now they're damaged goods in this town. Their reputation is trashed, and that makes me look bad by association. People are asking me how I could let my parents treat my sister like this. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying this got out of control. Drop your post. Issue a public apology. And I'll make sure they drop the lawsuit. You walk away with nothing, but at least you're not buried in debt. And if I don't, then I'll make sure this lawsuit bankrupts you. I've got money for lawyers. You don't. I'll drag this out for years. Even if you win, you'll lose everything fighting it." I stared at my phone. He had me cornered. Either submit and lose everything, or fight and lose everything. Then my phone dinged with an email notification from Harold Stevens. Subject line, "You need to see this." I opened it while Brandon's messages continued to come through, threatening and cajoling by turns. Harold's email was brief. "Forwarding something you need to read. Call me immediately." Attached was a forwarded message from someone named Patricia Reeves. The message read, "I saw your client's social media post about Frank Thompson. I'm Frank's first wife. We need to talk. I have information that might help her case." First wife? I never knew Dad had been married before Mom. My hands were shaking as I called Harold. "Who is Patricia Reeves?" I asked. "Your father's ex-wife, apparently. I spoke with her yesterday." "Glenda, this changes everything. We need to meet with her. Tomorrow if possible." "What does she know?" "Everything," Harold said. "And I mean everything." Patricia Reeves met us at Harold's office on Tuesday afternoon. She was 72 years old but looked younger, with silver hair cut short and sharp blue eyes that reminded me uncomfortably of my father's. "Thank you for seeing me," she said as we settled into chairs in Harold's conference room. I didn't even know you existed, I admitted. Dad never mentioned being married before. That doesn't surprise me, Patricia said. Frank likes to erase his past when it becomes inconvenient. She opened a worn leather folder and pulled out a photograph. It showed a young woman, maybe 18 or 19, with dark hair and my exact smile. This is Emily, Patricia said. Your half-sister? The words hit me like a physical blow. Sister? She died in 1995. Car accident. She was 19 years old. I stared at the photo. She looked so much like me, it was eerie. Patricia's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. Frank and I were married for 6 years in the 70s. We had Emily in 75. When she was 2, Frank left us. No explanation. No warning. Just packed his things one day and disappeared. Did he pay child support? Barely. The minimum required by law. He saw Emily maybe twice a year when she was growing up. Sometimes not even that. She pulled out more documents. Emily's school records. Birthday cards signed Love Dad but with no return address. A few photos of an uncomfortable-looking Frank at Emily's high school graduation. When Emily turned 18, Frank called her, Patricia said. First time in 2 years. He wanted to take out a life insurance policy on her. Said it would protect her future. She was young and trusting. She said yes. How much? $50,000. Beneficiary listed as Frank Thompson. Ifad Sikh. Emily died 6 months later. Hit by a drunk driver on her way home from her part-time job. Patricia's voice cracked slightly. She was studying to be a veterinarian. She loved animals more than anything. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Frank collected the insurance money within 3 weeks. I found out by accident when I was trying to settle Emily's small estate. I called him and asked if he was planning to help with funeral expenses or her student loans. He said the insurance money was his and he'd already spent it. On what? I never found out. Patricia looked directly at me. Your father has a pattern, Glenda. He uses women in his family. He takes from them. And when they're no longer useful, he erases them. She pulled out more documents. Bank statements from Emily's account in early 1995. 3 months before she died, Emily loaned Frank $20,000. She had been saving it from working 2 jobs. Frank told her he was in financial trouble and would pay her back within 6 months with interest. She believed him. Let me guess, I said. He never paid her back. She died still believing he would make things right. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Harold spoke up. Patricia, you said on the phone you've been following Frank's life from a distance. What else do you know? Patricia pulled out more documents, printouts from social media. News clippings. She had been tracking my father for 30 years. I know about Brandon. I know about you. I know about the will and the money and all of it. She looked at me with something like compassion. When I saw your Facebook post, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. She pushed a stack of papers across the table. This is documentation of everything. The life insurance policy on Emily. Her bank records showing the loan to Frank. Legal correspondence from my attempts to get him to contribute to Emily's burial expenses. All of it. Harold picked up the papers and started reading, his face growing more serious with each page. This establishes a pattern of financial exploitation, he said. This could be used in court to show that the lawsuit against Glenda is predatory and part of a long-term pattern of behavior. Patricia nodded. But there's more. The life insurance situation with Emily, I believe it may have constituted fraud. How so? Harold asked. Frank took out a policy on Emily without her full understanding of what it meant. She thought it was for her benefit. She didn't realize he would profit from her death. Under life insurance law at the time, that could be considered fraudulent misrepresentation. Harold's eyes widened. And statute of limitations on insurance fraud in this state is 10 years from discovery. You only discovered the policy details after Emily's death? I didn't find out the full truth until 2002, when I finally got copies of all the paperwork during an estate issue. Patricia's jaw was set. That was 23 years ago. Harold made rapid notes. If we can prove fraud and argue that discovery didn't occur until 2002, we might still be within statute. It's a stretch, but it's possible. What does that mean? I asked. It means your father could face serious legal consequences. Fraud charges. Financial penalties. Maybe even criminal prosecution depending on what we can prove. Patricia looked at me. I stayed silent for 30 years. I was tired. I was grieving. I didn't have the energy to fight, but when I saw what Frank is doing to you, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Someone needs to stop him. I felt overwhelmed. I have a sister. Had a sister. A sister I never knew existed because my father erased her from history. Brandon knows about her, Patricia said quietly. Frank told him years ago. But Frank made sure you never found out. Why? Because you look like her. Patricia touched the photo of Emily. Same eyes. Same smile. I think you remind him of what he did. And he couldn't stand that. So he erased Emily from your life before you could ever know her. The cruelty of it was staggering. Harold gathered all the documents. This is substantial. With this evidence, we can file a countersuit that will terrify Frank and Brandon. We have leverage now. I don't want revenge, I said. I just want them to leave me alone. Then we make them understand that leaving you alone is their only option, Harold said. We show them that if they continue this, they'll lose everything. I went home that night with copies of all Patricia's documents. Derek and I sat at our kitchen table and looked through them. Photos of Emily as a child, as a teenager, at her high school graduation, birthday cards she had sent to Patricia. A diary entry from shortly before her death, where she wrote about being excited to finally have a relationship with her dad. I cried reading that. She had died believing Frank would make things right. She had died with hope. I wouldn't let her death be meaningless. That night, at 2:17 in the morning, my phone rang. Brandon. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. He was drunk. I could tell immediately from his slurred speech. You don't understand, he said without preamble. You don't know what it's like. What are you talking about, Brandon? His voice broke. I'm in debt. $300,000 in debt. Bad investments. Stupid decisions. I'm losing my house. The bank is foreclosing. My wife doesn't know. Nobody knows. Everything suddenly made sense. Dad said he'd help me with the inheritance, Brandon continued. But they're not dying. They're healthy. They could live another 20 years. I can't wait that long. So you convinced them to sue me, I said flatly. Brandon's voice turned pleading. I needed cash flow. If they got $35,000 from you in settlement, Dad promised to give me half. $17,000 would keep me afloat for a few more months. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. You tried to bankrupt me for $17,000? You're my sister, he said, as if that explained everything. You're supposed to help me. You get $500,000 in inheritance. I get nothing. And you think I should help you? It's not like you need it as much as I do. You don't have kids. You don't have a big house. You don't have real responsibilities. I have a life, I said. I have worth. I have value beyond what I can provide to you. Brandon made a dismissive sound. Whatever. I'll figure it out. I always do. Maybe I'll just contest the will myself. Claim diminished capacity. Dad's 71. Easy to prove he's not in his right mind. Then I get everything immediately. You'd do that to them? After they gave you $65,000? After they made you the sole heir? Family is family until they're not useful anymore. Brandon's voice was cold now. Hey, maybe we could work together on that. Contest the will together. Split everything. 50-50. What do you say? And there it was. He had no loyalty to anyone. Not to our parents. Not to me. Not even to the memory of Emily. Everything was transactional. Everyone was a resource to be exploited. I'm recording this conversation, I said. And in this state, I only need one-party consent to make it legal. There was a long pause. You're bluffing. Am I? I asked. Want to take that chance? He hung up. I sat there in the dark, my phone in my hand, the recording saved. I had him. I had him admitting to the entire scheme. The lawsuit. The manipulation. The plan to defraud our parents. All of it. In the morning, I sent the recording to Harold. His response came within an hour. "This is exactly what we needed. We can destroy them with this." I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a deep, bone, weary exhaustion. But I also felt something else, a determination, a certainty. I was going to win, not because I was better than them, but because I had something they didn't, the truth. Harold moved fast. Within 48 hours, he had drafted and filed a comprehensive response to my parents' lawsuit. The filing included everything: Patricia's documentation of Emily and the life insurance fraud, bank records proving my parents weren't financially struggling, the text messages showing their manipulation, and most damaging of all, Brandon's recorded confession admitting the lawsuit was a scheme to extract money from me. The motion requested that the lawsuit against me be dismissed with prejudice. It also included a counterclaim for attempted fraud, emotional distress, and reputational harm. We were seeking $75,000 in damages. Harold filed everything with the court. It became public record. The local legal community in our small town took notice. An attorney suing a daughter for helping her parents was already unusual. But the counterfiling with all its evidence was explosive. Within 72 hours, my parents' lawyer filed a motion to withdraw from their case. He cited ethical concerns about client honesty and potential fraud. He was abandoning them. Frank and Linda were left without legal representation. Their lawsuit, already weak, was now being handled by them personally. They had no idea what they were doing. 2 weeks later, a judge dismissed their lawsuit entirely. Insufficient evidence, the order said. The court finds no credible documentation that the financial transfers from defendant to plaintiffs were intended as loans rather than gifts. Furthermore, the evidence of retaliatory intent undermines plaintiffs' credibility. My parents lost, but the countersuit remained active. Brandon was named as a co-defendant for his role in orchestrating the fraud. His recorded confession made defending himself nearly impossible. The consequences came quickly. Brandon's employer, a respected financial services firm, launched an internal ethics investigation. An employee involved in a scheme to defraud his own sister didn't reflect well on the company. His social media post calling me selfish got screenshot and sent to his supervisor along with the court filings showing the truth. 3 weeks later, Brandon was terminated for conduct unbecoming of a financial professional. His wife, Sarah, filed for divorce within a month. She hadn't known about the $300,000 in debt. She hadn't known about the scheme against me. When it all came out, she was done. Brandon had to sell his house to cover debts. I heard through family gossip that he moved into a small apartment across town. The extended family, who had so eagerly judged me weeks before, began reaching out with apologies. Aunt Carol called in tears. "I'm so sorry, Glenda. I should have listened to you. I should have asked for your side before judging." Cousin Jessica sent a long email. "Your father manipulated all of us. I'm horrified that I believed him over you." Even Margaret at work, who had been so cold, approached me in the break room. "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you." The vindication should have felt better than it did. Instead, I just felt empty. Family gatherings that Christmas excluded Frank, Linda, and Brandon. Aunt Carol hosted and specifically told them they weren't welcome. I was invited, but I didn't go. I spent Christmas with Derek's family instead, with people who had never demanded I prove my worth in dollars. In January, Brandon tried one last desperate move. He called me from yet another new number. "Please," he said, "drop the countersuit. I have nothing left. I lost everything. You tried to destroy me," I said. "I was desperate. I made mistakes. Mistakes are accidents. What you did was intentional. What do you want from me?" His voice cracked. "An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it." "It's too late," I said. "You don't get to ask for mercy after you spent months trying to bury me. I'm your brother." "No," I said. "You're someone who shares my DNA. That's not the same thing." He started threatening me again. Legal action, harassment. He'd make sure I regretted this. I filed for a restraining order that afternoon. Given the recorded threats and the evidence of his previous schemes, the judge granted it immediately. Brandon was legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from me. My parents tried a different approach. They sent intermediaries, distant relatives, family friends, people asking if I would be willing to talk, to work things out. I agreed to one meeting. Only one. With Harold present. We met in Harold's conference room on a gray February afternoon. Frank and Linda looked smaller somehow. Older. Diminished. Harold started the meeting. My client has agreed to hear what you have to say. I suggest you use this time wisely. Frank cleared his throat. We made mistakes. I waited. We thought we were doing what was best for the family, Linda said. Her voice was thin. No, I said. You did what was best for Brandon and yourselves. I was never part of your version of family. I was a resource. What do you want from us? Frank asked. His voice had an edge to it. Still defensive even now. I pulled out a document Harold and I had prepared. These are my terms. I slid the paper across the table. 1. A public apology. A written statement admitting to the scheme and the manipulation. Posted to social media. 2. Full repayment of the $25,400 I gave you. Plus interest. Total of $32,000. 3. An updated will removing Brandon as beneficiary and splitting your estate between me and a charity in Emily's name. 4. Brandon must repay the $65,000 you gave him over the past 3 years. The room was silent. Emily? Frank's face had gone white. My sister, I said. The daughter you erased. The one you stole from. Patricia told me everything. Linda looked between us, confused. Who's Patricia? His first wife? I said. Emily's mother. The family you pretend never existed. Frank looked like he might have a heart attack. You have 1 week to decide, Harold said. Accept these terms and we drop the countersuit. Refuse, and we pursue every legal option including potential fraud charges related to Emily's life insurance. Criminal charges, Harold added. Your son is already facing financial ruin. Do you want to face prison time? We left them sitting there. 6 days later, Harold received a signed agreement. Every term accepted. I received a cashier's check for $32,000. The new will was filed with the court as an irrevocable trust, and Frank and Linda posted a public statement to Facebook. The statement was brief but devastating. We acknowledge that we manipulated our daughter Glenda financially and emotionally. We apologize for our actions and for the harm we caused. We take full responsibility. The comments section filled rapidly. People who had judged me weeks before now offered support and apologies. The truth was out, and it couldn't be hidden anymore. Brandon never repaid the $65,000. He didn't have it. My parents filed a separate lawsuit against him. I had no idea how that would turn out, and I didn't care. They had created this mess together. They could sort it out without me. 3 months later, Derek and I closed on our house. The cute little bungalow with the yard. We painted the bedroom a soft blue. We planted tomatoes in the garden. We made it ours. My savings account slowly rebuilt. The $32,000 from my parents helped, but more than that, I was no longer hemorrhaging money every month. I could breathe financially for the first time in 2 years. I started meeting with Patricia monthly for lunch. She told me stories about Emily. What she had been like as a child, her love of animals, her terrible jokes, her kindness. I wish I had known her, I said one afternoon over coffee. She would have loved you, Patricia said. You have her strength, her sense of justice. Patricia and I became close in a way I had never been close with my own mother. She was the family I had needed all along. 1 year after that awful day when I found the will, I got a phone call from Harold. Frank had died of a heart attack, sudden and unexpected at 72 years old. I attended the funeral but only to support Patricia. We sat in the back row. Brandon was there, haggard and thin, his eyes hollow. He tried to approach me afterward. I walked past him without a word. The estate was settled according to the trust. Half to me. Half to the Emily Reeves Memorial Fund, a charity Patricia and I had established for young women escaping financial abuse. My share came to $420,000. The house, the retirement accounts, half of everything. Brandon contested the will, of course. He hired a lawyer with money he didn't have and filed a claim of undue influence and diminished capacity. He lost. The judge cited Brandon's recorded confession and his pattern of attempting to defraud family members. The will stood. Brandon got nothing. I used some of my inheritance to establish a scholarship fund in Emily's name. $5,000 annually for a young woman studying veterinary medicine. The first recipient was a girl from Emily's hometown, who reminded me of what my sister might have become. I visited Emily's grave with Patricia on what would have been her 50th birthday. We left flowers, yellow roses, her favorite. I spoke to the headstone like she could hear me. You deserved better. You deserved a father who loved you more than he loved money. I'm going to make sure your name is remembered. I'm going to make sure other people don't go through what we did. Patricia squeezed my hand. 6 months later, Derek and I got married. Small ceremony in our backyard. His parents were there. Amanda was my maid of honor. Patricia sat in the front row, beaming. No one from my birth family was invited. I didn't miss them. At the reception, Amanda gave a toast. To Glenda, who taught us all what real strength looks like. Who showed us that sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away from people who will never value you. Everyone raised their glasses. I looked around at the people there. Real friends, chosen family, people who loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. I thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fight, the victory, and I realized something. I was free. For the first time in my life, I was completely free. Free from the obligation to prove my worth through sacrifice. Free from the burden of earning love that should have been freely given. Free from people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. I learned hard truths that year. People will always show you who they are if you're willing to see it. Loyalty without reciprocity isn't love. It's exploitation. And the hardest fight isn't against others. It's standing up for yourself. When everyone tells you you're wrong. But I also learned something else. That families aren't just made by blood. They're made by choice. They're made by people who show up for you without expecting payment. They're made by love that doesn't come with a price tag. Derek and I danced under string lights in our backyard. Patricia took photos. Amanda cried happy tears. And somewhere, I hoped Emily was watching. Knowing that her story hadn't ended with her death. That her name would live on helping others. That she mattered. We all matter. Our worth isn't measured in what we sacrifice or what we provide. Our worth is inherent. It exists simply because we exist, and no one gets to tell us otherwise. Not even family, especially not family. As I stood in my own backyard, surrounded by people who truly loved me, married to a man who valued me for who I was, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Complete. Genuine peace. I had fought for myself. I had won. And I had built a life worth living. That was the greatest inheritance of all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where family expected you to sacrifice endlessly without recognition or reciprocity? How did you handle it? What advice would you give to someone going through something similar? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with a difficult family situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they're not alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your own strength. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes knowing that others have faced similar struggles and come out stronger is exactly what someone needs. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brings you comfort if you're going through something similar, and I hope it reminds you that you are worthy of respect and love just as you are. You don't have to earn your place in your own family. And if they can't see your value, that's their failure, not yours. Take care of yourselves, set boundaries, protect your peace, and remember that sometimes the family you choose is the one that truly matters. Until next time.